The pitch deck was sent 6 weeks earlier. A 30-slide PDF, tight, clean, efficient. No fluff. No buzzwords. Just vision, execution, and timelines. At the top of slide 1 was her name in bold, Amara Jules. Not Amara Creative, not Jules Media, just her, raw and exact, because she was the brand. Not a conglomerate, not a committee, not a holding company with a vague mission statement and recycled templates. She was a storyteller. And yet no one really looked at the deck. They scanned it, yes. Scrolled with half interest during morning coffees and between Slack pings. They bookmarked it, tagged it with follow-up, and let it sink beneath other, louder tabs. But she didn't mind. She never did. The ones who ignored the blueprint were always the loudest when the masterpiece landed. She was used to building quietly under the noses of people who only respected sound when it echoed through a title or a logo. So she moved in silence. From the moment the contract was signed, Amara took over the bones of their brief and reshaped it like clay. The original concept had been stiff and empty homage to innovation full of jargon and drone shots. But she had asked a different question: what would this company look like if it told the truth? Then she wrote the real script. No models, no suits, no product placement. Just the soul of the brand, what it wanted people to feel, not what it needed them to buy. She cast real employees. She scouted real locations. She rewrote dialogue no one would ever speak naturally. She had 12 shooting days across 5 buildings. Day 1 was the flagship lobby, the crown jewel of the company's headquarters. She needed only 45 minutes. 2 shots. Wide and push-in. Natural light. Natural sound. 1 actor. Minimal crew. But she brought her phone. Not to cut corners. To direct. To test. To line up the shot with the lens she knew they couldn't afford to waste. She entered the building the same way everyone else did. Through security. Through the badge scanner. Through the eye of the quiet, disapproving stares. She had the permit in her bag. The contract in her inbox. The budget approval already logged. But none of it mattered. Not when she looked like she didn't belong. The moment her camera phone tilted upward, tracing the curvature of the atrium, a man in a blazer interrupted the frame. He wasn't aggressive. He didn't shout. But his face said everything his words didn't. He assumed she didn't understand the rules. She smiled, nodded, and kept filming. Behind her, the real DP wheeled in the red cam. The gaffer was still parking. Her assistant director was still on hold with the location manager. But Amara had already captured the first frame. And she knew it was the one they'd use. 10 floors up, behind tinted glass, a team of execs were rehearsing talking points for a quarterly update. They didn't know she was already in the building. Didn't know she'd already arrived. Didn't know that the campaign they budgeted for was already breathing through a lens they didn't respect. Back in the lobby, the man who stopped her asked again about her credentials. She handed him a folded paper. He opened it. Eyes scanned. Shoulders shifted. He said nothing. Because the header said exactly what it needed to. Lead director, Amara Jules. He blinked, stepped back, and nodded. She didn't respond. She just lifted the phone again, locked in on the soft bounce of natural light off the stone wall, adjusted the focus by a ½ millimeter, and hit record. The actor entered frame. The dolly was ready. The take began. And 30 seconds later, they had the opening shot of the entire campaign. Shot on her phone. In silence. While they still thought she needed permission to be great. The elevator was slow, not by design, but by usage. Too many people, too many swipes, too many silent nods that filled the mirrored box without conversation. Amara stood near the back, her camera bag tucked against her legs. No one spoke to her, but every movement around her said more than words ever could. A man beside her glanced at the bag. Not long, just long enough to register what it wasn't. Not a laptop. Not a briefcase. Not something he recognized. Which meant it didn't belong. The elevator opened on 8. She didn't move. On 10, she stepped out. The hall was quiet, lined with glass offices full of the same. Screens, spreadsheets, people hunched over productivity. No laughter, no variance. Each space a replica of the last, fluorescent lit and antiseptic. She walked with intention, ignoring the eyes that followed from behind glass. Some curious, others calculating. She reached the corner office. Production staging had already begun. Her assistant arranging lighting gels across a rollaway cart. 2 PAs laying sandbags along the corner to hold a C-stand upright near the windows. Amara didn't pause. She took out her phone, scanned the light, and took 4 pictures. Not for reference. For proof. Because every time a male producer questioned her framing in post, she had evidence of intent. She adjusted the blinds by 2 degrees, watching as the late morning light softened across the desk surface. Not artificial light, real light, the kind that told the truth about the space. She was building mood, not just image. One of the senior VPs walked in. He didn't announce himself. He didn't ask for clearance. He stood in the doorway and stared at the setup like it was an inconvenience. She didn't look up. She adjusted focus on her handheld. She nodded once at the PA to mark slate, and rolled. The actor, real employee, real nerves, sat in the chair, exhaling once before repeating the line. We don't just build platforms, we build trust. Simple. But Amara let it hang. She knew the real message wasn't the line. It was the pause before it. The moment of hesitation. The inhale. The uncertainty of being seen. The VP didn't understand it. He whispered something to a colleague about the lighting being too dim. Amara heard him. Didn't react. The shot finished. She moved to reset. The VP asked if she needed to reframe with real equipment. She turned the phone in her palm, slowly, revealing the lens attachment mounted to the case. The stabilizer nestled beneath. The live preview mirrored on her tablet beside her. He said nothing. She nodded at her grip. The lights reset, and the shot moved on. Later, in the break room, she caught 3 employees rewatching the take. Not on set, not on playback. On someone's phone, recorded from behind the scenes. They were whispering about her, but not in the way she'd come to expect. They were saying, she saw him. They were talking about the actor, the moment, the pause. And she knew then the ad would work. Not because it sold anything, but because it unlocked something. The next day, someone from marketing sent her a suggestion list. Polished language, cleaner sets, brighter clothes. She read it once and ignored it because what she was building couldn't be sanitized. It had to feel real, even if it came from a phone, especially because it did. The glass walls blurred at their edges, bending reflections of chrome chairs and faux succulents into something dreamlike. Inside the conference room, the table gleamed, an endless surface of engineered walnut polished to corporate perfection. It wasn't made for decisions. It was made for image. Amara stood at the far end of the room, alone for a moment. Her crew was delayed by traffic. The client team was finishing a call upstairs. It gave her time, something rare on production days. She used it. She walked the room slowly. She wasn't looking for the best angle. She was listening, not to sound, but to tension. Where would someone sit if they were nervous? Which seat would an intern take? Where did power live in this room? She stopped at the 3rd chair from the end. Left side, nearest the glass. Then she sat. Phone out. Camera open. She watched herself in the reflection. Not for vanity, but for rhythm. How someone looked when unsure. The dart of an eye. The twitch of a lip. The pull of a sleeve. These were the truths that didn't fit in shot lists. The door opened. The executive assistant appeared first, followed by a man in a pressed shirt who clearly thought of the room as his. He paused when he saw her. Not out of recognition, out of calculation. She wasn't in the seat they expected. She didn't wear what they knew. No clipboard, no headset, no branded polo. Just a woman, black, calm, phone in hand. His eyes went to her lens. Phones aren't allowed in this room, he said. She didn't flinch. She reached into her side pocket and pulled out a laminated permit, issued by the same company he worked for, stamped with an authorization line signed by the CMO. He didn't read it. He gestured toward the hallway. She stood, politely stepped outside. But instead of arguing, she walked 5 steps to the left and raised her phone again. This time through the glass, framing the scene from outside. Because sometimes you told the truth more clearly by staying on the outside looking in. The actor entered shortly after. A young woman, nervous, with 2 new shoes and a water bottle she gripped like an anchor. Her blazer still had the retail fold crease in the elbow. She sat in the exact same seat Amara had studied earlier. The camera rolled. The scene began. And Amara didn't call action. She just watched. observed, then captured the micro-movements that told a better story than any script ever could. The actor didn't know she was rolling. That's why the footage worked. Across the glass, the man in the pressed shirt hovered. He didn't understand what was happening. Why there were no lights, no boom mic, no shouting, no hierarchy. He thought chaos. She knew clarity. When the shoot ended, she handed the raw footage to her editor. "Cut nothing," she wrote in the email subject line. "Not a single blink. Not a single breath." Because that's what the campaign needed to say. Not "we are perfect," but "we are paying attention." By the end of the day, she had 43 minutes of footage and 6 seconds of gold. It was all shot on her phone. Because in her hands, that wasn't a device. It was an invitation. The edit bay wasn't glamorous. There was no neon, no inspirational posters, no branded hoodies or film festival laurels tacked to corkboard. Just an open studio in the back of a shared workspace, dimly lit by 2 monitors and a flickering surge protector plugged halfway into the wall. Amara sat cross-legged on a creaky office chair. Her phone rested screen down beside the keyboard. Across from her, Andre, the editor, clicked through the timeline, his fingers dancing over the keys like a concert pianist who didn't need to look down anymore. They weren't chasing speed. They were chasing feeling. Not cuts. Moments. She leaned in. Frame 1. The actor turning her badge over in nervous fidget. Frame 2. The receptionist nodding not to a person, but to a protocol. Frame 3. Light refracting off the glass in the second-floor walkway where silence was louder than speech. None of it looked like an ad. That was the point. It looked like memory. Andre pulled a still into color correction. The image was flat, desaturated, shot in natural light on an iPhone. Then he touched the gamma just once, and the frame bloomed into life. Quiet golds, soft blues, the texture of skin preserved in every pore. Amara said nothing. Andre knew. They let the scene breathe. Elsewhere, the marketing team was preparing for a review. They had slide decks, comparative mood board, a list of suggested modifications. The list included more logo visibility, more smiles, less awkwardness. They wanted the people in the footage to look aspirational. But Amara wasn't filming aspirations. She was filming recognition. She returned to the footage. A woman standing near the elevator. She wasn't acting. She had been waiting for a ride, unaware she'd entered the edge of the frame. She looked tired. Not weak. Not broken. Just real. Amara left her in. No masking. No crop. Because sometimes the strongest statement in a film was the person who didn't know they were being seen. At midnight, they rendered the first cut. 2 minutes, 19 seconds. Every shot told the truth. There were no taglines, no testimonials, no sparkle, just people, moving, breathing, existing. And in the background of one shot, out of focus, framed by glass and office plants, was Amara herself. Camera up, phone out, invisible, but not absent. The next morning, the clients arrived. 3 suits, 1 assistant, 2 smiles. They asked if the footage was ready. Andre hit play. No one spoke for the duration. When the screen faded to black, one of them coughed like sound needed to fill the room. The CMO finally said, "It feels very human." Amara nodded once. That's all she ever wanted it to feel like. She stood, packed her things, and left before they could start debating feedback. Because this wasn't the version they asked for. It was the version they needed. And deep down, they knew it. The render was final. The deadline was met. The ad was complete. But the story, the one that no one noticed, was just beginning. The release was unannounced. No countdown. No teaser. No press email. Just a quiet upload on a Tuesday morning embedded on the company's homepage and set live on their YouTube channel with a simple caption. What it means to be seen. No caps. No hashtags. Within 2 hours, the first ripple hit. A product manager in Minneapolis tweeted the link with a comment. "Wait, this is our company? Why am I crying?" Then a developer quote retweeted, "I work here. I never felt like this until now." By noon, LinkedIn was alight with reposts, most from employees who had never shared a branded post in their lives. Some wrote about the color grading. Others about the music, which wasn't scored but felt like it had been. But the loudest voices were the quietest people. The ones who never sat at the head of the table. The ones always mistaken for someone else. The ones who said things like, "That's me. I'm the one near the elevator." Amara was watching all of it. Not from a desk. Not from a stage. From the quiet of a park bench, her phone tilted slightly in her lap, headphones half in, coffee cooling beside her. Notifications ticked past like heartbeats. Not vanity metrics. Not viral. Just impact. The kind you couldn't fake. The kind no focus group could predict. Behind her, somewhere in a 10th floor boardroom, someone was trying to take credit. She knew it. She could feel it. The polite power grab of people who hadn't even watched the final cut until it was already online. One of them would say, "We knew we had something special." Another would claim, "It was a bold direction, but we trusted the team." But no one there had trusted her. They tolerated her. Until her vision delivered something undeniable. A marketing blog picked it up that afternoon. Headline: New Ed breaks rules, builds trust, shot entirely on a phone. The story focused on the tech, not the craft, not the silence she had captured, not the faces they had ignored. But that was fine. She hadn't made it for the blogs. She made it for the girl watching at 2 a.m. wondering if her voice mattered. She made it for the employee who never got featured in the monthly newsletter but stayed late every night to close. She made it for the receptionist whose smile didn't fit the brand guide but carried the entire building. Her inbox flooded. Other companies. Other offers. Other pitches. Some with bigger budgets. Some with fancier offices. But most with the same blind spot. They wanted what she made. But not her. She archived the messages, closed the tabs, and returned to her camera roll. To the face in the glass. To the moment in the elevator. To the look across the boardroom table. Because what she had captured wasn't an ad. It was proof that people saw what they needed to see. If someone dared to show it. And the whole time they told her. No phones allowed. But she was never carrying a phone. She was carrying a mirror. The invitation arrived in a white envelope. Hand-delivered. Too formal to ignore. It bore the company's seal and a single line embossed in matte gold. Annual Brand Innovation Gala. Inside, her name was printed in serif font, all caps. Not creator. Not freelancer. Just Amara Jules, no title needed. They were hosting it downtown in the ballroom that usually hosted awards for architecture and legacy donors. She hadn't planned to attend. The work was done. The story had aired. The ripples were still circling outward in the silence. But she went. Not for recognition. For closure. She arrived without an entourage. No assistant. No stylist. Just her and the same bag she carried on set. The side pockets still lined with battery adapters and lint. The ballroom was glass and chrome, engineered elegance, with LED panels looping company highlights and stock footage overlain with taglines. The same people who questioned her presence weeks before now lined up to shake hands. They smiled wide, teeth polished and eyes unsure, like they couldn't quite remember if she was the intern or the keynote. She didn't correct them. She just watched. The program began with corporate retrospectives, graphs, testimonials, sizzle reels stitched together with voiceovers and buzzwords. Then came the awards. She wasn't mentioned. Not at first. Not as creative lead. Not as visionary partner. Not even as featured contributor. Instead, they announced a new internal initiative, Authenticity in Storytelling, complete with a new logo, a hashtag, and a director of cultural insights. But something shifted when the video played. The campaign. Her campaign. No title card. No introduction. Just silence and then that first quiet breath. The one she had held on frame 47. The ballroom, lit like a tech expo, dimmed into stillness. No clinking glasses. No throat clears. Just the images. The woman in the chair. The man in the hallway. The hands folding a resume. The eyes glancing up with hope. And at the edge of frame, every frame, Amara's voice behind the lens, never heard but always there. When it ended, the room didn't applaud. Not right away, because applause felt too performative for what they'd just seen. Eventually, a single clap broke through. Then another. A wave of sound, brief but awkward, like they realized too late what they had missed in real time. The CEO took the mic. He tried to contextualize the piece, spoke of innovation, vision, leadership, then thanked the team. Not Amara. Just the team. She smiled. She had already known they wouldn't say her name, but the crowd said it for them. After the lights came up, people found her. Not to pitch, not to flatter, but to tell the truth. Someone said, "I showed it to my daughter." Someone else said, "That's how I felt every day here." And a third, quietly, "You made something real." Later, on her way out, the man who had once told her she couldn't film in the lobby held the door open for her. He said nothing. She nodded. Outside, the city buzzed with the sound of status and ambition. She pulled out her phone, not to check messages, but to take one last shot. The reflection of the ballroom behind her. The lights blurring like memory. The truth, unpolished and untouched. She lifted the phone, framed it, captured it, then slipped it back in her pocket. Not a prop, not a weapon, not a rebellion. Just a lens that had always known how to see what others refused to look at.